This is a film about a visit to Roatán, Honduras.
Roatán is a small island some 65 kilometers off the coast of Honduras in the Caribbean Sea. It was a challenge getting to an airport, given the snowstorm that dumped a foot of snow. Dive sites on the surrounding reef ring most of Roatán. Roatán is located near the Mesoamerican Barrier Reef, which is the second largest barrier reef worldwide after Australia's Great Barrier Reef. Hence, Roatán has become an important scuba diving destination, as well as a cruise ship stopover. We stayed on the north shore of Roatán, where the diving is plentiful and the beach very nice.
The resort was on the small but busy West Bay beach. It's especially busy on days when the giant cruise ships arrive at Coxen Hole and the passengers flock to the beach.
Roatán hosted pirates during the golden age of piracy, which lasted from 1650 to 1730. Oddly, workmen were painting the asphalt shingles at the resort. There was a little bit of wildlife to be seen around the resort.
West Bay Beach hosts many scuba diving operations that take divers out to the nearby reef or around the island to the dive sites on the south side.
There were giant carnival cruise ships at Mahogany Bay as well as at Coxen Hole. There are many dive operations on Roatán offering services to tourists. The distance from the resorts to the dive sites is generally short, so little time was spent in transit, except when we went to the south side of the island when the winds made diving on the north side too rough. Once at the dive site, we quickly entered the water to explore the wonders of the reef. dove on nitrox gas, which reduced the risk associated with the dangers of decompression due to nitrogen bubbles, although it increased the risk of oxygen toxicity. The waters on the reef were warm at about 28 degrees Celsius.
During our dives, we were lucky to see a number of sea turtles.
Foraging sea turtle may spend up to 40 minutes underwater, while a sleeping sea turtle can remain underwater for up to 7 hours.
It was fascinating to watch a turtle grab and eat a fireworm.
The large barracuda had a menacing appearance, but it moved smartly away. The barracuda is a predator with prominent, sharp-edged, fang-like teeth, much like those of a piranha. Swimming through a cloud of fish was always interesting. There were interesting sea creatures to be found hidden in the coral.
Some of the turtles in the marine park have been tagged as part of a study to understand details such as the health of the turtles and the status of the breeding population in the area. However, to me, when I saw a tagged turtle, it really took away from the experience as it seemed completely unnatural. Lionfish are an invasive species that is native to the Indo-Pacific Oceans but are now established in the Caribbean. They have very few predators and they are carnivores that feed on small crustaceans and fish, which significantly depopulates native species on the reefs. The sea anemone attaches to a hard surface. Its base is topped by a ring of tentacles around a central mouth. The tentacles have stinger cells to catch passing prey and pull the prey into its mouth. A porcupine fish can inflate its body by swallowing either air or water. This increases its size and requires predators to have much bigger mouths and exposes sharp spines on its body. Many of the turtles seen had moray suckerfish attached to them. These suckerfish don't feed off debris from the host meals. Rather, their diet is composed primarily of the host feces. The turtles seem to want to shed the suckerfish as they do little for them, whilst making movement more difficult. Coral reefs of Roatán are part of the Mesoamerican Barrier Reef system that was heavily damaged by Hurricane Mitch in 1998. More recently, the reef has been affected by coral bleaching caused by higher than normal water temperatures. Sea turtles are air-breathing reptiles with lungs, which mean they need to come up to the surface for air every so often. An active turtle that is doing a lot of swimming and grazing may need to pop up every 30 minutes or so, but when they tuck under a ledge and nap, they can stay submerged for 6 hours or more. Sea turtles mostly stay within 10 to 30 meters of the water's surface, but can dive to greater depths. Spiny lobsters, also known as crayfish, lack the large claws of true lobsters. We were lucky when a beautiful spotted eagle ray was seen searching for food along the bottom. At the base of the beautiful long tail are several venomous barbed stingers. The ray is a cartilaginous fish whose young are released by the females as miniature versions of the parent. The spotted eagle ray is hunted by a wide variety of sharks. The highlight of this ray encounter was seeing the ray flying majestically over the reef. At times, the reef looked like an aquarium filled with beautifully colored fish, and a wide variety of coral was moving about in the current. Swimming near a cloud of colorful fish was wonderful as the school moved in unison on the reef. Fortunately, the water temperature was generally suitable for shorty wetsuits, vice full-length ones, although some wore the latter. The school of striped sergeant major fish provided a change up to the schools of blue fish regularly encountered. The trumpet fish is a long-bodied fish that has the ability to change its colors to camouflage itself. As well, it often swims vertically to blend in with vertical coral and pipe sponges. The turtle flying low over the coral was particularly pretty. The pair of turtles appeared to be discussing how to divest themselves of their suckerfish. One of the turtles had suckerfish on its dorsal side, whilst the other had them on its ventral side. Swimming through the narrow channels served to raise one's concentration in order to keep off the channel walls and avoid catching equipment on protuberances. The channels were not for the claustrophobic. The fireworm is a type of marine bristleworm, whose bristles, when flared, can penetrate human skin and inject a powerful neurotoxin that produces a painful, burning sensation around the area of contact. Fortunately, we had a large number of sea turtle sightings, including many of them whilst they majestically flew along the reef. Passing by a stream of blue chromis was unique and quite enjoyable. The small yellow sponges looked like miniature volcanoes growing out of the coral. The giant barrel sponge is the largest species of sponge found growing on Caribbean coral reefs. Over a span of hundreds or more years, it can reach a diameter of up to 2 meters. Despite being a sponge, it has a hard and stony texture. The barrel sponge is a filter feeder with water continually pumped into pores on the sides of the sponge and out of the large opening at the top of the sponge. It's interesting to see what can be found living inside the sponge. Due to the sea turtles' excellent camouflage, it was a challenge to see them against the reef. Divers are enjoined from either touching or harassing marine wildlife, including the turtles. The sea turtles had no problem swimming away from any diver that got too close to them. The purple vase sponges were particularly pretty and rare. Swimming near a school of fish, blue tangs in this case, was always a highlight. To see some of the rarer fishes and invertebrates, one must look carefully into cracks and crevices and underneath overhanging corals. Many of the fish on the reef were blue, so it was a change to see a yellow fish every now and again. Pulling the suckerfish along appears to get old for the turtles as they try to shuck them off. The colorful yellow branch coral were rare, which may be due to the devastation on the reef visited by Hurricane Mitch in 1998. In fact, the reef was littered with broken branch coral. As a change-up, we dove on the wreck of the Aguila, a 70-meter-long freighter with a dual-deck cargo area. It was sunk in 1997 as an attraction for divers. When it was sunk in 1997, it was upright in 30 meters of water. However, in October 1998, Hurricane Mitch arrived and broke it into 3 pieces. Our swim through the broken off bow section was interesting, and emerging from the darkness inside the wreck into the light was dramatic. While diving on the wreck was interesting, it was not as interesting as diving to see the reef dwellers moving about the reef.
Swimming through the narrow crevasses was interesting, but there was not much to see other than other divers. The dive master would tap his metal pointer on his tank to get divers' attention. As sound travels much better in water than air, this sound was easy to hear. The crabs were well camouflaged and hard to spot in the coral. The number of varieties of parrotfish was amazing. We saw a number of beautiful but menacing moray eels with their teeth-lined mouths. It was fascinating to see the wreck of the Mr. Bud appear out of the depths. This former shrimping boat was scuttled intentionally some 10 years ago to serve as an interesting dive site.
The Mr. Bud is a former shrimping boat sunk in 1995 as a diving attraction. The 25-meter long boat sits upright in 20 meters of water.
Entering the inky black interior of the Mr. Bud was exciting, but it was a relief when the exit opening finally became visible. Played out the famous bow scene from the movie Titanic on the bow of the Mr. Bud as we swam onwards to further explore the reef. It turns out that at depth, people with long blonde hair look surprisingly like Donald Trump. We encountered a turtle flying along with a shark sucker attached to its underside, which increased the drag as it moved through the water. The shark sucker attaches itself temporarily by sticking its sucking disc, located on its head, to various hosts including sharks, sea turtles, whales, dolphins, ships, and sometimes even divers. It took a lot of hard swimming to catch up with fish who were effortlessly moving through the water. The bright green moray eel looked beautiful yet menacing when it displayed its teeth, while morays look vicious. They hide from human in crevices and would rather flee than fight unless provoked. This moray eel made an aggressive display, but soon retreated into a crevice. A school of great chubs made an interesting contrast with a school of divers.
After about 45 minutes, it was time to ascend to 3 meters for a safety stop, which is normally for 3 minutes, but determined by a dive computer to reduce the risk of nitrogen bubbles entering the bloodstream. One of the divers ran out of air, so had to buddy breathe during the safety stop.
Back on the surface after the safety stop was over, we bobbed around waiting for the dive boat to pick us up. Perhaps the hardest part of the dive was removing the fins before climbing back up onto the boat.
Don't remove your fins until you're on the boat. Ah, excuse-moi, je te parle en anglais. Non, mais je préfère que tu sois accroché au bateau.
With all the divers back on board, we motored back to our resort past the giant cruise ships. Passengers on these giant cruise ships were served by the island residents whose income depended on selling services to them during their brief stop on the island. Apart from diving, there are tourist attractions such as Gumbalimba Park, with its cast of animals and birds imported from mainland Honduras, including green parrots, scarlet macaws, iguanas, and capuchin monkeys.
Is it turned on already?
Gumbalimba Park is named after one of the native tree species in Honduras, the Gumbalimba tree. Capuchin monkeys move through the trees and swing on the vines, just like in Tarzan's dreams. The monkeys climbed on the tours mainly to mutual delight. The Monkey Trail Canopy Zipline at Gumbalimba Park is an exciting slide down from the top of Roatán's mountainous backbone to a beautiful sandy beach on the ocean.
A beautiful seashore. You can see the boats, sailboats on the seashore.
The zipline descends through the jungle canopy in 13 stages between platforms that are located high up the tall trees. Alacrity was required to get out of the way, as some people didn't slow themselves down when arriving at a platform.
Let's see your glove. You want to change gloves, Chris?
It's the same thing.
Oh, maybe. Okay, this one doesn't burn, so just give it a shot. See if it break apart at the end. How's it going with you? You're doing well.
The island lifestyle is a laid-back one. With sunset coming on, the cruise ship passengers were back on board their giant cruise ships, and they sailed from the island to their next destination. As night fell, the beach came alive with a restaurant and bar scene. Finally, it was time to pack up and fly north, back to our land of ice and snow.